Hello, everybody. Welcome to Treasury meeting on 21st March. And we are going into mainly 4 agenda items today, and starting with previously planned questions. So over last 2 sessions, I hasn't been actually 1 session I have been part of, but the Treasury will still happen, and they lifted up some questions they think we should cover for going forward, and thought currently we could go quickly over them and answer in like shortly. What can we do when we can answer these questions, or if we have any sources we can point to. After that, we check into Q1 budget and try to write basically some like voting form. Pull out some numbers here that we can check, but we don't have to discuss there too much. So going into it, we have first question: create budgets in AGIX or USD. And before we mingled here, I reminded that we are in USD on proposals, and then aggregate results we apply same rates to all proposals. However, when now thinking of this new process you wrote, I think here, well, it's more for like work groups, but sometimes work groups are related to proposals. We are able to now accept work groups like a midterm. We don't have to wait like at the end of the month. So we kind of pile up, and then every month maybe a new work group comes up. In that case, how do we then start to apply the same rate to the proposals? It need to be rediscussed. But I would say that we are good in following like the current process, and then just deal with these issues when we have different work groups getting funded at different times.
I mean, I guess isn't that a good reason to make budgets in USD, because then it doesn't depend on the exchange rate when you wrote your budget?
Yeah, I guess so. But only the reason why the exchange rate even got to actually be relevant in our case was that we reached potential limits. Well, we actually reached limits, and then the limits were lifted. But yeah, so I guess it's gonna now, we will see how it plays out this time, where already some proposals are like accepted, maybe even about to be completed, or some maybe even completed and going for the next round. How it's gonna affect requesting budgets when there is like all the fluctuation in the price of like the handout. Then another limits on core costs and what are core costs. We did discuss that like a month ago, but I'm not sure, do we want to right now address these things and like bring them up again when we talk about the Q2 budget requirements? And then if we are going to like implement proposals or some kind of suggestions here, then we do that later in the call.
What I was going to say is we did talk about limits on core costs, and I remember a vote where people said there should be no limits, but the same people were here then as are here now. So I wonder if, I don't know, do we need a way to collect other people's ideas, or are we a quorum? I don't know if we are. But we could definitely talk about it in terms of Q2. But I just sort of feel like we're always a little bit late. Talking about this kind of thing now for Q2 is really late, and it feels like we should have been doing it a month ago and telling people, look, this is how you're going to need to put your Q2 budgets in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then in that case, we could do them as a succession. So in Q2, we are refining them. And this is like, it's a requirement we want to implement. But like, there is no enforcement if you're missing it, let's say. We just
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
help you to, those who are able, help us educate, but then Q3 we implement, let's say. So yeah, and then we can take discussion from there. And you mentioned also finding it from others. Like, how would we do that? Is it like a Google form, or we just in like 2 weeks or whenever it's time to discuss it, we just share, hey, now where we are dealing with core activities, everybody bring in your, but maybe it's easier if you have a forms to kind of aggregate such a large amount of data.
Have you, because like using a form is like extra overhead for you to then interpret it, but like, have you ever tried to get people to comment on a Miro board asynchronously, and have they ever done it? Because I sort of think maybe people wouldn't unless they were in a meeting, but it might be worth a try.
Yeah, if they would be in meeting, then it would work, but I think we have difficulty of getting people here and such a large, like, diverse group. On that, while I was typing, I had an idea while this Excel open where I took the picture. Here, if I implement task names, then technically we could would be interesting to see, okay, knowledge base, but these are the keyword titles you like, or task names you did that are unique. And then I can see like what is core task. Okay, I don't need maybe this, but I need this, and every team has this. Translators have, well, translations, but there are also onboarding and support activities. Then education guild has stuff. So, but that would take time for people to kind of go through this and reflect on the data output they do, which are core and which are not. But maybe that would also miss the ones they don't write in Tevo. They just kind of do.
I mean, what if we drafted something to say, like, for each work group, this is what we think your core activities are, and that gives them something to argue with, and they can just go, no, that's totally wrong. Whereas if you just ask people for their opinions, they probably won't get round to it.
I like that idea. We'll start with a template or a base, and then they can add or subtract or whatever. And then I wonder if it would be possible or useful to put that into like an Excel spreadsheet and have essentially the list of core activities on the left, the work groups across the top, and kind of map it out that way. But depends on how consistent the core activities are across the groups.
I mean, they're probably, some of them are consistent and some of them are not,
Yeah,
but we could still do it that way. That sounds like quite a good way to approach it.
thank you.
Okay, so we have went into that one. Then another question, reporting on budgets. How do we do that? I don't know. I think we haven't done that before. So that's a totally new thing. Maybe we need to.
I mean, we were talking about this in Archives work group yesterday. Just because well, Sucre, you've been trying to sort of collect people's quarterly reports, and I don't know how many people do them, but for me it feels like your quarterly report and your budget for the following quarter should have some connection in some way, maybe. But your quarterly report is where you report on how you spent your budget, isn't it?
Would it be found in here?
What, in our yesterday's
Yeah,
summary? Yeah.
like a file or something.
Oh, what what are you looking for exactly?
Okay, I just assumed.
No, no, it probably is there, but I wasn't clear what you were looking for.
Like the report a draft or summary already that we could link to in the Miro board?
Oh no, we were talking more about everybody's rather than just ours.
Mm.
It's not possible to make it data driven. I mean, as in non-manual.
I don't know. I feel like there's too much qualitative, experiential material in a good quarterly report, but maybe, I mean, how are you thinking that would go?
Well, if it's I guess if it's just a question of numbers, that's one thing. That could be dashboarded potentially, but I also, how much are we using generative products like Copilot or to produce any products now?
I'm not doing anything. I'm just making Power BI and Excel.
Yeah.
So no AI from my side. And Andre is maybe using to generate maybe some templates of code
Mm.
on the dashboard side.
I'm going to be spearheading implementation of Copilot for my company. We use Office products and so forth, so it's going to have good visibility across our stack. And we're going to probably trial it or pilot it with our business intelligence group. So I'm curious about what that's going to look like. So to answer your question, Vanessa, I don't know what that would look like here exactly, but if it's just numbers, that's what I was kind of curious about. But if it's going to be qualitative as well and some analysis as well, then we're probably not there yet.
I think that's going to vary from work group to work group, to be fair. What Sucra's just saying in the chat, I think is quite important. I'm assuming that you're somewhere where you can't use your mic, Sucra. But she's saying, I didn't think it has really been a requirement for work groups to submit reports, and it should be for accountability and transparency. It's also a way of auditing and knowing if the work group has done what it said it would do in a quarter. And
Yeah.
I'd just add to that it's also a way, with the qualitative stuff that we were just talking about, Will, for some work groups, it might be, well, we didn't entirely do what exactly we said we'd do, but what we learned from that is blah, blah, blah. And it does maybe need to be a bit more discursive for some types of work group, but for others, it probably is just numbers.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a good observation.
And I think maybe reporting on budgets is satisfied right now by the reporting on workgroup activities.
Except
maybe
they're not doing it, are they? Quarterly reports are not everyone's doing them.
I thought everybody's doing them. Yeah, I only have sent them to Peter, so I have actually and uploaded in Discord, so no clue where they are collected and what's the rate. Is there an aggregation? Yeah. Okay, we're getting weeds into that. So basically we have no solution. And let's just keep that in mind and come back to it when we come back to it. How do we do reporting on proposals? And then just from heaven, you drop this before the call started. And there's a choose-tested process for starting the workgroup in Ambassador program. And I think this starting Ambassador program can also be an action with proposal. And mostly these. So that's like a nice way to just start engaging people. Some perhaps potentially skip initial suggestion base and go straight into bigger stuff if they are already prepared.
I don't know. I added the initial suggestion phase because I just don't want people to have to spend time working up a proposal if they're new and they don't realise that, look, we really don't need a work group about that. I mean, it should be quite a simple, quick thing, and there should be a really restricted range of reasons why it could be refused. But it might be like, yeah, we've already actually got a work group that does that, or we've just rejected a proposal that does that. And it would just be like, just to make sure that somebody doesn't spend a long time working up a proposal just because they don't know enough about the ecosystem to know that it's not useful.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say there is an opportunity to also who already have a proposal and like details and the service to offer to just share the proposal?
Nah, because you don't want people to have to write up a full proposal if it's something that nobody wants.
Okay.
You just want them to be able to just go, oh, I think we should have a work group about dogs, and everyone can go, no, we really don't need that. Go away. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit flippant about it, but you know what I mean.
That's all right. Can we have a work group about dogs? That would be great. And cats.
Actually, yeah, I'm going to propose it now.
Okay. Well, then there is this proposal staging, which
Oh,
has
the other thing to say about that little initial proposal is that it's something else that core contributors can make decisions on. So it gives the group practice in decision making. So that's another good reason for it. Sorry, interrupted there.
okay. Well, that's nice. Wondering how much it relates to the matrix table, and if it's like, are they like usable in both cases, or that's outdated now?
Sorry, what was that? I don't
It
know about
compared like work group requirements from
that.
program
Oh,
perspective
yeah.
and
I mean, I sort of the list that I gave of what should be, what I reckon should be in a proposal was kind of inspired by that. But I think I added a couple of things and took a couple of things out. So it can still be tweaked.
so in order to know what went out, basically this new list is answering some of these things.
I think so, yeah. That's what I was trying to do. But
Or did you have the same guiding questions, or you had those options
no, I
there?
haven't really given it as questions. It's more like what I think a
Well, cool.
proposal should
Some
have.
more questions. But okay, so we are just
No,
wondering like how could we improve like adding the visualization to that too and
yeah,
continue that
yeah.
style. Okay, share proposal. Okay, so basically trial period meeting reporting. Yeah, the reporting will come back here too, and I see a bunch of questions there. So in my opinion, it could address like how do we do reporting on proposals going forward a bit, because if we have this process in place, we have like, yeah.
It's just how do we deal with work? Most work groups haven't gone through that process. So are we suggesting that they're going to do it retrospectively or what? And I sort of feel like once you're accepted as a work group, that process should be ended and it should move to a different process, which is kind of maybe focused around quarterly reporting, because like we've been saying, maybe people are not doing that. Because in the end, the theory of why you set up a group is one thing, but the practice of what you do quarter to quarter is a whole nother thing. And I think it's good if a work group responds to what comes up. It might change quite significantly over like 2 or 3 quarters from what it originally said it was. And that's not a bad thing. But if we're forcing people to stick to what they said when they set up their work group too much, I don't know. I can see pros and cons. What do other people think?
Sorry, I missed your question. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think Tevo's suggesting that we use the process that I've just written up for approving a new work group. He's suggesting that we use that to report on kind of proposals like quarter to quarter. And I'm kind of suggesting that I'm not sure that's the right way. It's almost like you should have one process to get a work group approved as a work group. But then after that, our reporting process should be about the work done rather than about the theory of what the group is for. It's like, let's look at what people do on what work they actually engage.
Yeah, I think it's a different objective and a different scope. So I agree. We probably would have to look at a different process that outlines what we, as you say, the outcomes.
All right. And going forward, there is like two more questions raised up. How do we handle work groups that underspend on proposals, and can the unspent budget secured for next quarter? Both of these we actually have discussed in previous calls that we do carry over starting with Q1 budget requests, and that I think was done in December. So whoever is already like doing and having a work group, their basically budget will continue to Q2. So when you reach the limit, then it's perhaps the time to write again a new proposal, or like refine your existing proposal if you already have one. In terms of like that guidelines that are popping up, and those who are new and all new initiations that start, they basically we could implement that kind of process and see where it leads us and practice from that. Then 4 more items: renewal of ambassador budget. I think the budget will change, but yeah, more validation can come from when Peter joins in and we have time with that. And if the price rises, should the rates go up for tasks? Yeah, that's like individual workgroup decision and workgroup speed on some of the workflows. I assume the surplus is like to when the token price goes up, and to me it's just part of Treasury and make new workgroups. So your proposal is your beat basically. So yeah, we had a bunch of new people joining in. We started with like going over previously planned discussions, and we also have later like Q2 budget requirements, but because some items were addressing Q2 requirements and just were in flow, and we went in deep in some of them items. But next one, the idea is to have this next one have Q1 budget, to come up with basically a sentence what we can vote on in a way that it closes the if everybody votes yes, then we will close the Q1 budget or approve it in a way that people can still adjust the dollar amounts until the end of quarter. Because maybe some people have not like there was the whole whole quarter started with the fact that, hey, let's reduce our rewards. Some people did it, and then now we no longer have to do it. So those who have had like the previous proposal versions with higher request amounts, they can put it back, and so we have like an accurate budget limitation. And we know it can't be that much, like some were few $1,000s, some were less. So it won't really affect our treasury that much.
Are we saying that people can't adjust it upwards further? Sorry, I'm not being very clear. People can't go higher than their original budget that they put in. Is that right? Or they can?
So they can.
They can. Okay.
Yep. So the
Does
proposal,
everyone know that? Because I think people maybe don't know that, and they should.
yeah, this been now a month with improving that, but now with that kind of decision or that sentence we do for people to vote, perhaps it can include like a easier explainable sentence about that this is possible now.
And the other thing I wanted to just ask, I wasn't 100% clear about what you were saying about underspends. I mean, let's say that a work group has $1,000 underspend. What happens with that? Let's talk about actual figures just to make it clearer. Does that mean that they can keep spending up until they've spent their Q1 budget, even if they spend it in May or something? Are we going as far as that?
So yes, I will say that if they requested 2,000, they did it with 1,000, then they can repurpose their 1,000.
And does that mean that they don't put in a Q2 budget until they've spent everything in quarter?
Or they can put that in and request even more to add in.
Yeah, but can they request more? Can they put in a Q2 budget when they've still got money
Yeah.
that they haven't spent? Okay, all right.
I think we should.
Interesting.
I guess it comes to discussion when there at some point is like somebody gets underspent his $1,000 and he requests a new workgroup with $1,000. Then like, can you just finance yourself? Or yeah, if it then is more insight provided that there are two different things we're gonna establish, then it's fine. But yeah, so how could we start? Like, when you are a core contributor, how do you want to receive the information first? Are we doing Google form or we use some kind of decision-making platform? Is anybody knowledgeable?
I mean, I think our first question should be what decision-making methodology are we using? Because it's sounding like we're talking about a consent process rather than anything else. And I guess that could be quite effectively done via a form. It could be like, do you have any objections to any of these budgets? And if so, what is it? But that's presupposing that we are using a consent process.
Well, I guess that brings us the most amount of data. Who even by core contributors are interested enough to check Google form? And if there is a good account of people, then we can be sure that when we start changing devices, we go.
I mean, would we have to say, look, you're a core contributor, you have to respond, meaning I'm not interested. You have to give some response, or are we not saying that?
So having like an option to respond in abstain, but if they don't even say that, then I don't know. I do like when in Discord there's a discussion about that, how do you record voting. I imagine actually like every person has like this list of decisions people are doing, and there's a list of people who are saying yes or no, and they just and all contributors are in a single column, and then you can basically get a heat map of who are doing stuff, who are not doing stuff. And actually the timeline matters too, so people could change perhaps, and like some people accept quorum is reached and then work is being done, and some people who now look at the work, they are like, no, this is not good, and then we block rewards.
I mean, I suppose I have a question, just like, is it mandatory for a core contributor to respond in some way? Even if it's just to say, I abstain, I have no interest in this issue. Just so we're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder if so-and-so's seen it.
Yeah, well, I think we're not gonna do that much votes. Maybe we start rewarding people. One AGIX.
And that's the other question I have. You keep saying votes, and I don't think we've ever agreed that it would be a vote. I'm suggesting quite strongly that it should be a consent process. I don't know. I'd love to know what other people think on decision-making methods. I mean, there's a document floating around that Felix and I threw together really quickly about how the core contributors could approach making their decisions for those first three decisions. And we suggested a consent process, and there's not really been any responses. And I could say, well, that means everyone agrees, or I could say, well, that means nobody agrees. I don't know.
No, they just say that no and give reason. But do we expect reason when they say if they vote yes, they don't have to have reason, or do they also have to have reason?
They're not voting.
I
They're not
think
voting. We're asking, do you have any objections to any of the... A consent process works by objection and then trying to work out what the objections are. So first of all, we have to know if anyone objects. And obviously there are issues with that if people don't feel that they want to put their head up above the parapet, and they might feel a bit exposed saying, oh, I object to R&D Guild's budget. And it's just like, it would, you know, it would feel a bit pointed, wouldn't it? So we just have to think about how we approach it. I mean, anonymity helps, but then it makes it difficult to track because you're supposed to then go, all right, you've got an objection. What is your objection? Can we sort it out? And if they say, well, you know, I object because they haven't put this little bit of detail, then they can go, oh, yeah, well, we can easily do that. Sorted. But if it's anonymous, it's hard to know.
we could make the channel just for core contributors. Or we want also inside what those who are not core contributors would vote on.
Approving work group budgets, I think we said not, but I don't know.
Q1 work group budget. Do you accept Q1 budget regarding 100,000 AGIX between all the work groups? More details on the Google Sheet, and work groups can change the budget to previous proposal amount suggested in Q1. This might change the budget cost amount for a few thousands.
I don't know. Do we not want to do work group by work group? Do we not want to say, look, do you approve this work group's budget? And then the next, I don't know. Or not. Maybe
yeah.
I'm completely off.
Yeah, I think for now it's because we are so much into it, and every work group has kind of, but we don't really have huge issues with them. I would just assume they are all accepted.
Okay.
And if somebody has a problem with one work group, I guess
That would be their objection. Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
And it's slightly easier because we already have the complexity of, well, they can change the budgets.
We have to have a cut-off date for work groups to change their budget so that people know what they're voting on.
So right now everybody are core contributors, right? So we're not gonna add like, if you are core contributor, your Discord name has more weight or something.
Yeah, I think Peter was saying that this decision would be made by core contributors. It would be testing out that process.
But any other question we want to include when they have an objections, but they want to kind of.
I mean, we have to, I don't think there's, yeah, I think we have to ask, what is your objection? Yeah. But I also wonder if we need to phrase it more in a consent process style. So it's not meant to be about, oh, do you have any objections at all? Like, is there anything that isn't perfect? It's more about, do you think it's okay to proceed? Is there anything that would stop you thinking this should go ahead?
Were you proposing to change the question as well? What is your objection to something like, please outline any concerns or something to that effect?
I think the first question needs to be simply, do you have any concerns? And then maybe we just need that conditional formatting, that if somebody answers no, then we ask, what's your objection?
So the statement or the question there should be followed by the conditional, if you have an objection, please outline it or something to that effect.
Yeah, but I was thinking of actually using the conditional structure that Google Forms allows you to do, so that if somebody answers no, then it takes them to that question. And I don't think there's anything else we need to know if somebody says yes, it's okay. I think that that's it, isn't it?
Does anybody want to be added to the edit list to see later rewards or change something? Nope.
I don't think I need to be, and I follow your suggestion, Vanessa, and I agree with it for the most part, but I do wonder if some people, I mean, if it's just a question of the number, then maybe there's, I don't know, I think there might be some circumstances where someone would say, yes, it's okay to proceed, but they still might have concerns, so still might be worth capturing those. But
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Okay, so an option where yes, however.
Oh,
I
no, not like
concerns.
that. If somebody ticks yes, it's okay to proceed, then you use a conditional structure to get them to a question that asks, even though you know, in effect, even though you agree, was there any issues that you would mention or that you think? No, are you? It's like,
Because then it's
No, we're talking about the conditional structure that you can use in a Google form. So you can structure so that at the end of that question, you specify that it goes to question 3, which is, even though you agree, do you have any issues you want to raise? And if somebody answers no, it takes you to question 4, which is, what are your objections?
because I create a new question here and
No, but it's about linking the answer to the question you want it to go to when somebody.
is there
so in other words, if the answer is no, that's the only time that the question would appear.
You
I think
do that in, you don't really do that there. I'd probably have to edit it. I can't really describe how to do it.
what I'm gonna do is then I'm still gonna add you as a collaborator. You can use this Google form, then asynchronously we're gonna update it, and then people will basically vote on that stuff. Do we want to reward people for voting? Was there any discussions anywhere about this? Or like consenting, like because they are paying attention now, and technically we have their Discord name, so we technically could include it in on chain and use that also to, I don't know, measure something, which we don't know what we are measuring yet. Any thoughts on that? Or until we know what we measure, we don't record on chain? I guess no opinions. So let's just keep it Google form, no rewards. Yeah, I created the picture of this Q1 workgroup budgets. But I'm not even sure how could we, like, an average rate is that, so quarterly budget is that number. And now we need to just calculate that into AGIX value and then sum of AGIX. So technically we are 160,000 AGIX because of, I know this is AGIX rewards that are asked, two different things. So then we need to convert AGIX USD to AGIX in order to know that. I'm just gonna calculate it here.
Just on that table that you just showed, it looked as if governance workgroup had no budget allocation, but didn't they agree that there would be a little one?
Where?
Governance workgroup, it says 0. And wasn't it agreed it was
but
like really...
that's all, that's the list of spent rewards. So
Oh, sorry. Okay, I see.
in some reason my Google doesn't work, so I need to do it in calculator. And I lost my calculator. God damn it, Zoom. Why you do this to me? Okay. So we have 21674 and we times it by 0.5, right? That gives us, no, that's wrong. Damn it. Sucks. it's in and we do it like this way, right? Yeah, 40,000 AGIX spent plus that, so it's like 50,000. So technically we had 100,000 AGIX left from previous budget, so far away from 80 kind of limit. Well, not that far, 30%, but so I don't know why I closed it. I put that number here, but that's something, yeah, we want. Peter wanted to see, so that's recorded. So, and then, yep, we have 7 minutes left, I think. Oh no, we have 30 minutes left. So we can go back to the Q2 budget request requirements. Or I have a Treasury proposal workgroup idea, and I could share, and then we can give like an initial ideas of should we proceed, should we create the proposal out of that. Basically already starting that. Maybe we can follow that process if that clearly explains what question I need to answer. Or we have new people joined here. Is there anybody that has a topic that feels like is more important than this Q2 Treasury or that idea? Well, I'm gonna start with the workgroup idea then. So I took some notes when I was in Panama, and it was like the idea of like discussions where you kind of need like disincentives sometimes in your environment in order to to enforce betterment of the place. It was in context of AGI, but to me, humans are also like part of that. That's like the first experiment. So idea was to create a policy workgroup, which is basically the main idea of helping to select rules for the treasury system and the way, like for example, do we have a limit or not? And it mainly has like a main role is like policy selector. Like there are people who do them, and then these are like who are going to select them, and the work group is basically around selectors or like helping and supporting them. Ideally again with bi-weekly calls, like before or after the treasury quilt, because it's closely related. And then like sub roles also after selectors, there are like policy makers, so everybody can come up with an idea. And work group facilitator, just to have like a space for those roles to mingle. Deliverables would be like rule activation dependencies, and like if like so if a rule is instead of like not a limit but or a limit with a dependency, like if you reach 5 people in work group or like more people, then your limit increase or something like that. Hypothesis, like why is that even a role, like what it should do, and problem it addresses, implementation, start time. So sometimes we have like saying, okay, this rule starts in Q2 and this in 3 and so on, and make it more reflective. So kind of something we already did this form here, but now just a work group around that. Yeah, and then I have like a idea of process, how to ratify that. It involves also core contributors and some kind of processes, and when you analyzing the ratios and like spread it out over time. But yeah, that's like the general idea of having a policy work group that takes the ideas of rules and helps to select one of them for every week to turn into like this broad, hey, we should ratify this, or like this is a good idea to implement.
Are you thinking of a group with like named members, or is it just who shows up on the day, or what would you think?
That's a good point. I think policy selectors decide if policy I'm not sure where did I wrote it down or when did I skip it, but the selectors, I think, are the ones who join the Treasury, but that work group itself, and are consistently like part of that. So the more decisions they make, the more decisions they are like weight to select, compared to the ones who are like just ideating. However, yeah, I don't know how to like this is demanding start. So to me, it's those who join, they become somewhat selectors, and those who remain longer gonna be just having more influence. Perhaps later we could implement some kind of like asynchronous way, but because I have no clue how it will work out and how much work there is, I'm not thinking of scaling it like asynchronous. And or maybe if somebody joins and has experience that they have the capacity to scale it. So
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on this one. Sorry, I've been listening quietly. So yeah, I like the idea. In regards of politics, policy making, we change the word, so decision making in regards of ideas, word gaming or playing with the words. You change the order, it wouldn't change the objective. So if this team of members will help ideas to go through the main gate or to move forward to help the community to make decisions that sometimes get stuck through all different variables, make them process, make them a lot of information, they get lost. So this team will be in charge of pulling them up and keep them on the table. And to probably for that, it will be good to use a representation kind of effort. So each work group should have a voice or a perspective. This team should include all the colors, probably that's a good thing to everybody feel represented, because it would be we're helping to communicate internally different aspects before voting or before any further or more relevant decision is taken. I don't know if I'm following right the idea.
Initially there was like a strong against feeling that we should have like a treasury, not treasury guild, but like governance related guilds in ambassador program that will make it more bureaucratic. However, here the scope for this various policy work group would be treasury rules, and just like it's still kind of a work group under treasury guild in a sense, not helping. Well, they can help others, but yeah, keeping it that much simple.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, well, it is simple, but clearly we have all of these limit ideas on our stuff, and that work group is like a different space to just work on that, where then Treasury Guild still is here, and we can discuss and use insights from that work group, and then still discuss like, okay, we have these questions, we need this budget, and continue with the normal discussions, while there always somebody is trying to change the way we ratify stuff.
Okay, sorry, Bunny. No, just to close, because the same idea will apply directly on what you're saying. I mean, a wider. Sometimes we here in the Treasury calls, some guilds they don't represent, or they just day by year, or they are not part of a lot of decisions or discussions. So, I mean, the representation on this work group would be very important for all the work groups to stay aligned. All the decisions are very important. And as Vani was mentioning, so what you were saying about the budget to be expended, so it's a cumulative, and we have all this, and work groups that don't know, and they're fighting for few tokens, and probably they don't Yeah, so it's good to have the information out there and to have a group of representatives. So the work group should have only that distinction, or at least as one of the variables. Yeah. Sorry, but
No, I would point of information. I'm not entirely clear what we're thinking here. Are you saying that these calls would carry on as they are? And if something comes up in one of these calls where we kind of are saying we need some sort of policy or guidance or something on this, that will go to this proposed new group? And are you also saying that whatever they come up with would be ratified by the core contributors?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There is, okay, I found like the one idea was that policymaker could be selected to be like a representative. But for now, because it's a work group, I'm like, those who join, they're in. Let's do this together to just get it started, because it's also a bit of like experiment. However, when I did that, my main concern was that we don't have document like this that can help us to do stuff. We are constantly like designing some stuff, but we never implement. So hopefully that workgroup could have been like a place for these kinds of discussions and coming up with a system, and then every week kind of dropping in, or every 2 weeks ratifying the new like stage towards that the system that has been kind of agreed that this could be nice. Another topic, then we can go back to the Q2 budget request requirements and simply ideated for now all the list of requirements you would bring. Q2 budget requirements. Do we try to now? No, I'm not gonna try it. Are we gonna now enforce proposals, or we are still budget request is fine enough?
Are there any work groups who never wrote a proposal?
Governance workgroup.
Okay. I mean,
Gamers could actually has also proposal. Marketing could, I don't think has proposal, but it has like documents that has information what could be proposed.
and also it might not even be continuing in quarter 2, so maybe it's not. I don't know, I still kind of feel that those are two different things, and a budget request or whatever that tells you what the group is going to do in that quarter, and that may be enough. I mean, maybe we should ask for a budget to define like what your focuses are for that quarter. You know, just like 3 lines, 4 lines. I don't know. But I think it might be useful to have some kind of statement of what your overall focus is for that quarter.
Okay. I would perhaps I think there is an opportunity for both, but I would still maybe regard proposals a bit like more advanced compared to just explaining core costs. So perhaps a difference between how much you can ask. So maybe $2,000 for core costs, or 3,000. Let's see what.
Oh yeah, I'm not seeing any connection at all between proposals and core costs. I'm suggesting that maybe a budget request should include a couple of lines at the top that says, these are the things we're going to focus on. These are our aims over this quarter. And then it just allows for work groups to change and develop rather than having to bind themselves forever to what they said a year ago in their original proposal. You know?
Mm. Okay, so ideally just keeping it separate. So like a totally different budget requesting? Or you still feel like it's a proposal?
No, I don't really think it's a proposal. I think you put in a budget, but maybe you have a couple of lines at the top that say, this is our focus for this quarter, this is the work we're going to do. And then you outline the tasks that are going to relate to that. I don't think it's necessarily about core costs as well. A lot of this would be about your one-off costs. It's like, okay, this quarter we're going to focus on blah, blah, blah. So we're going to do these tasks and this is the price. But your core costs are the things you need to keep running mostly, aren't they? Like your facilitation and documentation and project management and like when we discussed this, we were saying that for some groups, their core activities are pretty much all that they do. Like video work group exists to make videos. So making videos is their core activity. Whereas R&D guilds, one quarter they might be saying, well, we're running a proposal on looking at language exclusion, and the next quarter we're doing something completely different.
This kind of feels that actually proposal is required, in a sense that you could say we propose, like you still propose, because one thing I noticed here is that these people who are asking core costs and small projects, are they part of some work group, or can they be a totally new work group? But if they're totally new work group and they go through this work group process, then they have a proposal. So maybe like there's a difference of you get a space to just reward people by making a work group or like a guild, and
Are we not just getting really muddled here? Is anybody putting in proposals who's not a work group? I don't see that happening. And let's see who's doing that.
But that's the goal, right? That others are joining in. Like people outside of ambassador program join in here and propose something.
Yeah, but then we've said they have to go through a process to create a work group if they want to. Or they could hop into another work group and say, look, I'm interested in working on this. I notice at the moment from looking at meeting summaries that quite a lot of work groups are going, all right, has any member got any ideas for what you'd like to work on in quarter 2?
Yeah, so one idea is going to the existing work group. Or if you want to set up its own work group, should it then be through proposal process? Or we allow create like temporary, basically like gamer school are based. It wasn't really like, but it was. So it had some core costs and it had a small project.
Well, the process that I'm suggesting in that document that I shared is what I think the process should be. But
so there is also a proposal. So we do have a proposal process for new workers.
yeah, but not for existing ones.
The existing ones can use their already existing space to just switch up basically the budget sheets and core costs. And if they want to spin up from, yeah, that's a good question. What we do when somebody wants to change their focus? Like, yes, I got in, I did my process code, but now I just changed my name to Tevo PBL, and I'm doing totally different thing, even though it kind of is related. Do I need to create a new proposal, or I just change my core costs and focus? Or there is something that needs to connect the proposal and the focus kind of has to remain the same, but just the budgets and core activities can change. So this makes that kind of that all the work groups and guilds always are like focused, they're bubbling up, and we create a space where you do work.
Yeah, I get the point, Tevo, and it's I think it's sorry to jump in. Probably it's something that Vani mentioned, and it's part of the process for new work groups. We need to leave a space for experimentation and then pivoting while growing. So pivoting and changing and or adapting. For example, the PBL, we were focused on a specific software, and now that PBL work group can work the same way with a different software, teaching and creating all this PBL content for GitHub specifically, or some other tools that we are starting to rely on. So same structure, probably different budgeting that will vary in time spend or different things, but probably it's not, no need to present a new proposal. It's something that can have that space to move and to adapt and to keep bringing new ideas. What I was thinking when you were talking, Tevo, is that the other thing that we don't have is and probably, so Bunny said, well, she should join a work group or create a new work group following the procedures that I was today there with the onboarding. We need to create a step, something to follow guidance. But what if there is this very independent proposal, or a proposal that somebody wants to proceed as a team of one to work on, that can apply to all the work groups, or it's out of the box? What is just a proposal? Do we have the space for that, or he needs to fit in one of the boxes?
No, I think we'd have space for that. I think a person like that would propose it as a work group of one, and if people didn't like the idea, they wouldn't agree it, but there's scope for it, definitely. I think the same thing's true as it would be if a work group completely changed its ethos or whatever. They've got a proposal that says we do this, and then they put in a budget where they're doing something completely else. The core contributors could say, well, sorry, we think that's too divergent. Or they might say, oh, that's really grown out of the work that you've already done. It makes sense as a development. So yeah, we approve it. I think it's got to be case by case, hasn't it?
You're muted, Tevo. I don't know if you're talking.
Oh yes, I'm muted. I don't know how long I talked. But
Sorry, I wasn't watching the screen. So.
yeah, I was talking about I don't know when I muted myself or something, but basically the process guild here has like 3 work groups. One is knowledge space, and the detail of like the work groups kind of make it a service we as ambassador offer and other brands or communities. But I think it can come up out of like joining other work group and doing its experiment or like the work group under that guild without the proposal and just having like a different focus budgeted. However, after he's done like one iteration or something, then we do expect a proposal so he can already define what worked, what didn't work, and then come up with a proposal so that we have an asset of what he has been experienced already and what he's planning to do going forward. Or maybe they do a workgroup, it was one quarter and then no longer needed or didn't work out, so you don't do a proposal then. Or maybe it worked out, but he has to move on, you still do a proposal because you want to provide an asset, what kind of, so it's like retrospective proposal.
Yeah, I like that, and it shows the process of probably some seeds will grow strong and scale, and some others will just vanish or but leave the experience or the data better on.
Wonder what obvious budget requirements we have, I think we could say the dollar limits. So now if the price will remain, why can't I read it? Maybe I need to.
Yeah, one thing it was discussed today, you know, I'm doing this listening session for all the work groups and guilds to understand where we can impact from the R&D, and then personally to understand better how we are working and where are the strong teams and works and what to learn from them. And well, I have been adulating Vani and Sucre before in their guilds. I can do it now again. So the archive have a really strong team, and more than nothing operational, as an onboarding too. And it was discussed yesterday at the archival. I think it was Sucre, Vani, and how they were discussing their budget. Okay, so this has to do with Treasury. So archival, so we can fix probably and work a template or a format for work groups and guilds to present a quarter report for the community. Okay, so we understand what the resources are used in, what are the results, what is working, what is not, and then we all can have a common consensus and understanding of probably bring an idea of how to fix something that is working wrong, or the opposite, something that is working well, make it more exponential. And yeah, that's I think that's a bold statement from a work group to, and it came from archival because it's in their scope, create a report, not on activities, on the budget. It's two layer, one on the other. Output, deliverables, how the resources are used, and then we understand because, well, you know the process we have in the R&D. So some of the members want to kill part of the budget, the operational budget, to use it in proposals development. And some other members fight for keeping an operational budget because we need it to work as a guild and to have all these needs, summaries, facilitators, and all these things that are very useful for us to understand where to improve or not. So definitely a budget needs to have operational budget. I use the word mandatory today with Vani and Sucre were there, but it's probably a basic ABC that all the work groups must or need on their budget structure. A minimum of destinated to have this structure to be able to record the output. That simple thing is very useful. Now on the R&D, we're fighting to get this budget back to structure, and okay, so let's ask for more money. I say, no, we have the money. We thought it wasn't needed. Now it is needed. So if things are obviously a common sense that they need to be there, and then they should stand a percentage for experiment and all of that. But yeah, they need a structure.
I wonder, Guillermo, what about if there was, rather than saying, okay, you have to have these elements, like something that says you have to consider having these elements. And if a work group says, look, we just facilitate ourselves, we'll just chip in, we don't need a facilitator, then they can say that, but at least we know they've thought about it. And it's not just because they haven't considered it.
Yeah, I agree. But as we scale this, so this is stupid, and don't get me harsh because you are all in for decentralization, Vani, and I'm all in. But I see you guys working, and you guys have the structure that other guilds don't have, or work groups, because they want to be creative and all of that. And for being creative, you need a standard. You need certain limits. You give red, yellow, and a canvas, and this guy can be creative with just 2 colors. What you guys are doing is an agenda, is very organized. I spent 2 hours yesterday on my guild, the guild that I'm a part of. And it's difficult sometimes to track. And as I said, the GitHub knowledge you guys have, we need to take that to all the guilds. It's not that you need to do this way, but if you don't have your guitar tune to be able to play with all the orchestra, something is going to sound, yeah, there on the corner, you can see that, you know. So I think that all the experience you guys have built, it can be very useful. Yeah, maybe it's the wording or the semantics. You guys can use this or not, but there's this. Probably, yeah, that's the best way to present it. Not to make it mandatory, but yeah, you can ask first. you can push it. If they don't respond or bring the outcome we need, you guys need to, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I take your point, but I think what I'm saying is that it depends on the work group. And
yeah,
I know there's been really important and effective work groups who've done it differently, and you know, they should be able to do that. Not everybody's going to run their project from a GitHub board. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I get it. But knowing there exists a place to go and reach these possibilities, I think it's good for them to have it. I need it.
It's good to be aware of it. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just more interested in this conversation about like, what a budget should look like. I'm not so much interested in what elements people do or don't do in their work. I'm more like, how do they present their budget? And that feels important to me. Say like I have seen some budgets and I can't remember whose they were now, so I'm not gonna like call anybody out, but they were so minimal that you looked at it and you weren't really clear what work people were gonna do. Sometimes I think the budgets I write are far too detailed and people don't need to know all this. You know, it's like I'm pinning myself down to too much. So I think, yeah, I'm more interested in what should a budget look like in terms of what kind of information should you give.
Yeah, and going back, Evani, sorry, I'm going too long on this. Having in mind that what we discussed on DM, and Peter is calling us, and Tevo is part of that, using what we have to fit the LLM, and then have an ambassadorial, magic answer machine. We are using with a template. We are using your system. So what I'm seeing right now while talking is that what if we do the same with the budget reports you guys were talking, because we have the summaries and then we will have the other layer of how we use the resources. That will come first with a budget understanding of basic needs, but then the output, if we have it, all the output data sets ready to feed the machine, we are going to have a more powerful tool on summaries, words, engagement, all these metrics, and then we gonna add the token, value on the end. So budget reports, all in.
Regarding those reports, do we want to aggregate all quarterly reports to budget aggregator? So when we now in 2 weeks start requesting budgets, do we want to make a new column here and then put the report behind here, so that at some point somebody can go like, yeah, well, that was a proposal, that was the report, and
yeah, it's a good idea.
Use that then as an insight to prepare for new versions. Okay. Well, we are been discussing here now over hour and a half quarterly, and I will do meeting summary. Before I do a meeting summary, does anybody want to say something, add something to the recording? Because after the meeting summary, I will stop recording.